If I had to ask what was currently wrong with Star Wars, what comes to mind? Is it the Disney Plus shows? Is it the lack of movies? Or is it the movies they have chosen to release? I'm still pretty sure Mandalorian and Grogu is a social experiment and we're all falling for it. Starfighter sounds like it will be a breath of fresh air though. But in this current climate, I couldn't ask for more than a dirty glass of water, so I'll take what I can get. Starfighter seems like something new and risky, and I'd prefer that over something that devastates me to my core, making me shake like a little child.
Fans are going to be very happy today.
Look, I don't hate Star Wars. I just hate some of the decisions that have been made. Okay, every decision other than The Force Awakens, Rogue One, Mandalorian, and Andor. Those are really the only good parts of current Disney Star Wars. Okay, so some of Disney's Star Wars is good. So what is wrong with everything else? I think it can be boiled down to one specific problem. And that is the over-reliance on the expanded universe, both new and old. And yes, I am referring to the legends as well. The legends of Star Wars date back almost as far as the franchise itself. A long time ago in a frantic panic to make a quick and cheap sequel to Star Wars in case the first one didn't do well, George Lucas had a book written called Splinter of the Mind's Eye. In short, Star Wars was a mega hit, and instead of that book being the sequel, instead, it was The Empire Strikes Back. Maybe that was a bad call, but oh well. So, Splinter of the Mind's Eye became the first piece of the expanded universe, which would live on for years, telling the stories of Luke, Han, and Leia after the movies. Telling the story of a Sith war thousands of years before Han, Luke, and Leia. Look, this stuff was purely for the fans, made by fans who got to work alongside Lucasfilm to make cool stuff for fans. Then the dark times came, when Disney took over, and made all the extra stuff not matter anymore. They threw it away and started over, and now the franchise is where it is, in a fucking toilet. Look, I love the parts of Star Wars that I love. I love the original trilogy. I like parts of the sequel trilogy, I'll be honest. I grew up with the prequel trilogy. I was a 2000s kid. So I'm speaking from the heart when I say that I just don't care about Star Wars anymore. I said that in a video about Star Wars. Nah, that's about right. However, when Disney completely put the axe to the expanded universe and made it Legends, I was kind of off-put. I remember thinking that was kind of a weird thing to do, but I guess it made sense. They wanted to start fresh, only to do nothing or what feels like nothing over the course of 15 years owning the franchise. Except for the case of stealing from Legends, which they do a lot, but I'll get into that soon enough. Despite them releasing countless spin-offs, sequels, prequels, nightmares that make me want to piss myself, Star Wars has just become kind of a chore. It really has, and I decided to make this video because I wanted to talk about what I really think is the core issue with Star Wars right now. Look, there's just nothing for me to attach to with Star Wars anymore. It's not that I don't like the franchise in general, it's more that I have no interest in seeing Darth Maul for the 50th time. I'm a little over it. Now, yeah, similar to the old expanded universe, most of these stories are optional. Actually, all of this is optional. Why am I even talking about this? Oh yeah, views. The thing with the old expanded universe is that it didn't necessarily add or detract from the main Star Wars experience. I always felt like Star Wars as a whole always worked because it was surface level and fun, but there were also enough characters, planets, and lore to engage with in side stories and expanded lore. But now, all of Star Wars comprises of side stories and expanded lore. Now there are so many stories about Darth Vader's morning routine that they're forced to tell a random story about Count Dooku, because what other character do we have to tell expanded lore about? I can't wait for the Nia Num show where he flies a young Poe Dameron to daycare. I don't care about what Darth Maul did after his first death and before his last death. And if they try to squeeze in one more Jedi who survived Order 66, I'll literally blow up a planet. I feel like it's impossible for the mainstream audience or anybody other than a die-hard fan to understand or follow the franchise. And the thing about Star Wars is it's always appealed to the mainstream. That's how it's been truly financially successful. Yes, the fans matter, but they're not the only market. Star Wars has been locked down so it only appeals to the die-hard fans. Disney continues to mine nostalgia not only from their animated properties, but especially Star Wars, keeping a drip feed of semi-new content full of member berries meant to make a Star Wars fan clap because, hey, it's a character I recognize. Whereas it has people who just want a fun adventure story scratching their heads going, Who the fuck is that? Disney wiped the EU away and made it Legends, made their own story, and made every mistake along the way until the story made no sense, then panicked and started leaning into the old expanded universe. But they also have taken what is now called Legends and are adapting that into their new canon. Grand Admiral Thrawn is the greatest example. He was one of the first original characters created in the old expanded universe, but now he's been brought into the new canon. Kylo Ren is basically a direct ripoff of Jason Solo from the old Legends. So it begs the question, why did Disney bother? No, just why'd they bother in general? Like, but why do any of us bother, really? Money, probably. Like and subscribe. It's not like George Lucas ever respected the EU all that much. Large portions of it were disregarded when he made the prequel trilogy, but at least the EU was mostly about other characters or told stories that actually moved the timeline forwards. The new Disney canon is frozen somewhere between the prequels and the original trilogy, and they keep jamming in new material before the sequels, including Thrawn, in a story that is destined to go nowhere because it can't conflict with the sequel trilogy, which was already released a decade ago! I don't think Star Wars needs to keep going back to older time periods. I think it needs to move forwards. Maybe try that out. And I think that's why Starfighter intrigues me. I don't really think many people care about the franchise, especially like they used to, because it's entirely too confusing to follow unless you're a die-hard freakazoid, and I'm sorry, but I'm not into another animated show about a character who died years ago. I can't! No! Get them away from me! I got a gun! That's why I think Starfighter seems like a good idea, even if it doesn't sound like it'll be anything earth-shattering or world-destroying. I already made a video talking about Starfighter, but at the end of the day, the franchise just needs to return to its roots. Fun space opera action, with a hint of romance and thrilling adventures. Star Wars doesn't need a Skywalker to make $1 billion. It needs to get back to being the franchise that made the Skywalkers make $1 billion. Ahsoka Season 2 could be good, but with Thrawn being irrelevant to the sequel trilogy, I have to imagine he just gets defeated or dies in an upcoming movie or show that may or may not release in a few years from now. So bringing Thrawn in from the original expanded universe, now Legends, just seems futile. What's really the point other than fan service for a very minute part of the fan base? Most people don't know who Thrawn is or care enough to watch the Ahsoka show to see him in it. The Star Wars franchise is just so fractured that it's impossible to stay engaged when I'm constantly being beaten in the head with callbacks and character cameos for no real reason other than fan service, I guess. It's like Marvel, but at least Marvel usually moves forward. Let me get into this real quick. A problem with these franchises is that you're trying to make standalone projects that also fit into the puzzle that is the whole franchise. Transmedia franchises are kind of the worst sometimes. Starfighter seems like it'll be a fun, self-contained flick. But so was Mandalorian Season 1. And now that show has bred countless spin-offs and a whole nightmare of expanded universe rip-offs, like Thrawn. When Disney bought the franchise, The Force Awakens was a soft reboot. Now 10 years later, we're already getting another one. When Legends existed, you had the character Starkiller in The Force Unleashed, and it's revealed he was actually instrumental in the formation of the Rebellion? Did you know that? No. Because it's a fun video game and that's it. You don't need to know that to enjoy the original trilogy more. However, Star Wars is now nothing but expanded universe. Now the new canon of films and TV shows and the EU have fused into a disgusting monster more disturbing than that thing from Rogue One. Ugh. It's almost impossible to enjoy any new Star Wars media without being constantly aware of every other piece of Star Wars media. Star Wars' over-reliance on expanded universe material has led to the franchise being stuck up its own butt.